The Sakurada family has 9 children, made up of 6 girls and 3 boys. They live a pretty normal life in a typical Japanese household. One morning, Aoi, the eldest of the Sakurada siblings, woke up Akane and Hikari. She told them that everyone else was already up and getting ready to leave. Akane, the 4th child, was shocked to see that it was already 10 minutes past 7, and she rushed to get ready for school. Mornings at the Sakurada household are like a battlefield because there are so many of them. Every day they have to compete for the bathroom and toilet. Aoi was helping their mother prepare breakfast. That morning, their mom, Satsuki, was making vegetable omelets. She reminded the kids not to leave any food behind. The Sakurada family had breakfast together before heading out. Haruka, the 6th child, told their mom that they were out of toilet paper. Misaki, the 5th child, asked whose turn it was to do the monthly shopping. It turned out to be Shu's responsibility, and he said he would go shopping after school. Satsuki felt very lucky to have children like them. That is just a glimpse of daily life in the Sakurada family. Even though the siblings often cause problems for each other, they do their best to get along. At first glance, the Sakuradas might look like a regular big family, but there is something special about them, something that sets them apart. Their father, Soichiro Sakurada, is actually the king of the country. That morning, Soichiro was about to leave for work. He mentioned that he would be having dinner at home that night. Aoi, Akane, Kanade, and Shu left for school together. On the way, they were greeted by several people they passed by. Akane looked embarrassed and even tried to hide behind Aoi. Kanade was surprised that Akane was still shy around others and told her she needed to fix that bad habit. Living like ordinary citizens was their father's idea. As king, he wanted his children to experience life as normally as possible. But that choice brought along its own problems. It turned out that the siblings were constantly being watched by surveillance cameras. The cameras changed locations every week. Akane was startled when a camera suddenly pointed at her. She did not want to be filmed at all, and she had even memorized the locations of every camera. The cameras were meant to protect the Sakurada children, but to Akane, the 2,000 cameras scattered across town were way too much. Kanade was amazed that Akane could remember all the camera locations. If she knew where they were, she would definitely use that to win over the public, especially since the Sakurada siblings were candidates for the next king. Akane could not understand why they even needed an election for the next ruler. That had been Soichiro's decision as both their father and the current king. He had announced that once Aoi graduated from high school, they would hold an election to choose the next monarch. That announcement came in April, and the election would be held the following March. Akane never imagined that their father would take it that seriously. Kanade and Shu picked up their pace because they were worried about being late. Aoi encouraged Akane to hurry up too, but Akane was still anxious about the cameras that kept focusing on her. Aoi offered to walk in front of her to draw the camera's attention away. Akane was confused because she had just found a safe path without cameras, but now one had been relocated there. Aoi reminded her that if she kept avoiding cameras, they would end up late. In the end, Akane had no choice but to use her flying ability to avoid being tardy. Every member of the Sakurada family had a special power, which was proof that they were part of the royal family. Akane's ability was to manipulate gravity on herself and anything she touched. While flying, Aoi asked if Akane could slow down because the wind had blown her skirt and her underwear had shown. They nearly fell because they were not being careful. That day in the Sakurada kingdom, Shiro, one of the royal advisors, scolded Soichiro for taking the crown outside the palace. Just imagining the crown getting lost gave Shiro a stomachache. Soichiro brushed it off, saying Shiro was always too anxious. He then asked how the children were doing. Shiro reported that Shiri had already arrived at kindergarten. Misaki, Haruka, Hikari, and Teru would get there in 5 minutes, while Shu and Kanade were expected in 10. Aoi and Akane might have used their powers, since the cameras could not track them. Soichiro reminded Shiro to keep an eye on the children. After that, Soichiro was ready to begin his royal duties, and the palace guards escorted a television crew inside for the scheduled broadcast. Meanwhile, the bell rang at Sakurada Royal High School. Akane had just arrived when her 2 friends came up to her. They knew mornings were always tough for Akane. For her, both school and home were the only places where she could escape from all the eyes constantly watching her. Before she knew it, classes were over, and her time enjoying school had come to an end. Karen commented that no one enjoyed school life more than Akane, and that was because her friends never treated her differently. To them, she was just a friend. Right then, Aoi came to Akane's classroom to pick her up. As soon as she walked in, Akane's classmates surrounded her. Aoi was popular wherever she went. That afternoon, Akane and Aoi walked home together. Akane told Aoi how amazing she was since people seemed to like her no matter where she went. Suddenly, they heard a girl scream. Someone had just stolen her purse. Akane immediately got ready to use her powers and chase after the thief. As she leaped into the air, she realized her skirt had flown up, giving the thief a clear view. Embarrassed and flustered, she kicked him on instinct. The police quickly arrived and arrested the thief. Moments later, a crowd of reporters surrounded Akane, asking her about what happened. Since she was extremely shy, she could not bring herself to show her face. The story about Akane catching the thief made it to the news that day. Back at home, Akane was completely mortified. Once again, she was on TV. Aoi tried to reassure her, saying it was a good thing. Their mother praised her too, saying it was important for people to get to know her. Shu agreed, especially since the election was coming up next year. Hikari was thrilled to see Akane on TV. The news also showed a public popularity ranking. According to the survey, Aoi was well loved by everyone. Kanade was also extremely popular, and surprisingly, many people were hoping Shiri would be chosen. The anchor mentioned that Akane's ranking would probably rise too, thanks to her brave actions. When Akane heard that, she got even more embarrassed. Apparently, the surveillance cameras had caught her entire stunt on video. Not long after, Soichiro returned home earlier than usual. He asked if any of the kids had plans for the weekend. Hikari got excited and asked if he was taking them somewhere, but Soichiro had a different plan. They would all be appearing on TV. That weekend, the entire Sakurada family was on television. They were going to compete in a game show and show off their powers. The game was a mission to save Dandy, a stuffed doll placed on a rooftop, watched by the entire audience. The Sakurada children had to collect as many dandies as they could and drop them into a basket below. Before the event started, a message from King Soichiro was broadcast. He encouraged his children to do their best so the citizens could get to know them. He also announced that whoever scored the lowest would have to clean the palace toilets. The kids were stunned by the punishment. Why did there have to be a consequence like that? But Akane actually preferred the idea of cleaning toilets over being the center of attention. They had 60 minutes to complete the game. Not long after, the event began. Terry was the first to move. His power allowed him to exceed human limits. He was basically a superhuman. Thanks to his ability, he climbed the building with ease. Unfortunately, something unexpected happened. The building he was climbing began to crack and he fell. Not long after, Hikari sprang into action. Her ability, known as the Hand of God, allowed her to control life itself. She could manipulate the growth of living things. She used this power to make a tree grow tall enough for her to reach the top of a building. Teru, seeing this, said she was amazing. Unfortunately, Hikari made the tree grow too tall, which made it hard for her to reach the rooftop. The tree would return to its original size within 24 hours. Kanade was surprised by what Hikari did. She then used her own power called the Creator or Gate of Heaven. She created several drones and sent them flying up to retrieve the dandy. Kanade knew that every item she created would automatically deduct money from her bank account. The drones collected the dandy and dropped it into her basket. At that point, Teru had earned 4 points, while Kanade had 5. Seeing that, Misaki got excited. Her power, called One for All, allowed her to create up to 7 copies of herself. She commanded her clones to go collect the dandy, and they climbed up using the emergency stairs. At the same time, Shiri was off on her own, admitting that she did not quite understand what was going on. Aoi came over and asked what was wrong. Shiri explained that the fire hydrant man gave her a shortcut, but she did not get it. Aoi asked what exactly he told her. Shiri replied that he said, "Freight elevator B2, go up to the 27th floor." Hearing that, Aoi understood it was a route. Shiri then asked how Aoi knew that. It turned out Aoi had been to that place before. Shiri's ability, called Soulmate, let her talk not only to animals but also to inanimate objects. Meanwhile, Aoi's power, perfect memory, or invisibility gave her an unshakable memory. She never forgot anything she had seen. That was when Shu decided to begin his run. His power transporter let him instantly teleport himself and anything or anyone he touched to wherever he wanted. Thanks to that, Shu was able to collect several dandies in no time. Haruka was determined not to come in last, so he started moving as well. His ability, Next Possibility, allowed him to see the most likely outcomes from a range of potential futures. He approached Akane and told her to stay calm. According to him, if she kept standing still, there was an 87% chance she would end up in last place and a 74% chance he would. But if they worked together, those chances would drop by 25%. Akane said she did not mind coming in last because she did not want to stand out any more than she already did. Besides, the punishment was just cleaning toilets. Haruka then asked if she knew how many toilets there were in the palace, and that if she did it, she would end up meeting a lot of people. After hearing that, Akane felt more motivated to join the race and confidently said she would come in 8th. Haruka invited her to team up with him. Akane's ability, Gravity Core, let her control the gravitational force of her own body and anything she touched. With Haruka, she took off and began flying toward the rooftop. Haruka was confused about why Akane was flying so slowly, since she usually flew straight up in one go. Akane said she could not go faster because she was afraid her underwear might show. Haruka gave her a push to help her reach the rooftop faster. Akane blushed and told him that just because they were siblings did not mean he could do something like that. Kanade noticed what the two of them were doing and found it odd. Meanwhile, Shu had just picked up his 50th stuffed toy. Teru, watching, commented on how impressive Shu really was. Suddenly, Akane and Haruka landed near them and almost ran into Teru. Luckily, Shu teleported just in time and took Teru with him to safety. They ended up in a place surrounded by blooming cherry blossoms. Back near the rooftop, Haruka told Akane about her clothes. It turned out that during the chaos, Shu had accidentally taken Akane's skirt with him, which was obviously super embarrassing for her. The race finally ended. Shu came in first place, while Akane and Hikari finished with the lowest scores. Hikari was surprised since she felt like she had worked so hard. But according to Misaki, Hikari had just been sitting in the tree the entire time. Next, the host announced the current rankings in the election to decide the next king. There were still 3 people who had not appeared in the top 3 yet. They revealed that Kanade was in 3rd place, Akane in 2nd, and Aoi had taken 1st place. Back at home, Akane could not stop thinking about the embarrassing moment during the race, specifically, what happened with her underwear. Even during dinner, she did not touch her food, even though their mother had made her favorite dish, steak. Saochuru reminded everyone that his children were born into the royal family, which meant they would always attract public attention. It might be a burden sometimes, but as members of the royal family, they had duties and responsibilities. They were symbols of the country, and also its source of hope. Saochuru admitted he did not yet know who would be his successor, but what he truly wanted was for each of his children to grow up with strength of heart. That day, their father brought the crown home again. Saochuru explained that he had already contacted the palace. Later that night, Akane sat quietly near the door, feeling down. Aoi came over and asked why she was sitting there. Akane confessed that she wanted to be like a dandelion blooming in the front yard, something quiet and unnoticed, because she no longer wanted to be watched or draw attention to herself. To Aoi, if such a path existed, then Akane was the one who should become king. That way, she might be able to get rid of the surveillance cameras and put an end to the royal family's news broadcasts. Hearing that gave Akane the confidence to aim for the throne, hoping it would allow her to live a peaceful life. That day, Akane and Hikari were cleaning the toilets as punishment for ranking low in the dandy catching competition. Hikari wondered why they had to do that during Golden Week, and Akane couldn't believe how many bathrooms there were in the castle. After finishing their chore, they had to prepare for a traditional pop-up concert at the Sakurada Castle, scheduled for the last day of the holiday. All of King Saochuru's children were present for the concert, and of course it was broadcast on TV. The next morning, all the Sakurada siblings got ready to resume their usual routines before heading to school. Even though they were members of the royal family, they lived like ordinary citizens, just as Saochuru had planned. That morning, Akane greeted Kanade and Misaki, who were brushing their teeth. Kanade reminded Akane that there was a student committee meeting that day, which would be attended by class representatives from every grade. When Kanade was about to leave, Akane asked why she was heading out so early. Kanade explained that she didn't want to walk to school with Akane, since going with her would take forever because Akane always tried to avoid the surveillance cameras on the way. As Kanade stepped outside the house, a woman greeted her and asked why she was up and out so early. Kanade said she had a student council meeting to attend since she served as the vice president. The woman commented that it must be a tough job, but Kanade replied that she actually enjoyed doing it. Soon after, Akane ran to catch up, wanting to go to school together. They eventually walked together, although Kanade warned Akane not to cling to her like a ghost. She also asked Akane to stop her bad habit of avoiding the surveillance cameras, which were just doing their job. Akane said that if she became the next monarch, the first thing she would do is get rid of those cameras. Kanade asked if she was really serious about becoming queen. She admitted that Akane might actually be capable of doing it, but pointed out that being queen would only bring her more attention. Kanade said she was sure that she herself would be the one to become queen. Akane begged her, saying that if Kanade ended up on the throne, she should promise to eliminate the cameras. Deep down, Kanade also wished she could escape all the constant surveillance, but with so many cameras around, she couldn't risk showing her bad side. As they passed by a guy who greeted them, Akane looked visibly panicked and embarrassed. Kanade found it hard to believe that someone as shy as Akane could be a class representative, but it turned out Akane knew almost everyone at school. Kanade then said Akane should try to get to know everyone in the entire country. That way, maybe she would feel more at ease. Akane laughed, saying that was impossible, especially with how many people lived in the country. Kanade asked again how Akane even became the class representative. Akane explained that every group needs someone to mediate, but no one else wanted the job. Plus, being the class rep allowed her to keep an eye on everyone. And when someone had a problem, they would naturally turn to her for help, and wasn't that something she should respond to? Kanade was impressed. Even though Akane's personality didn't seem suited for it, she really did have the qualities of a royal family member. Out of nowhere, Akane asked Kanade to make a limousine using her special ability, so they could go to school in style. Every member of the royal family had their own unique power. Kanade's ability was creating objects out of nothing, but the cost of the item would automatically be withdrawn from her bank account. Kanade replied that Akane was basically just asking her to buy a limousine. Akane realized what that meant and then suggested maybe a dragon or a flying carpet instead. Kanade was stunned and asked if Akane had any idea how expensive it would be to create a dragon. Kanade instantly took out her phone to check the stock market. Akane told her she didn't need to be so anxious about money. She then asked Kanade how much money she had in her bank account. Kanade casually said it was about the same as the national budget. Akane was completely shocked when she heard that. All the way to school, Akane kept clinging to Kanade, which made their classmates comment on how close the two seemed. Akane wondered why Kanade always looked so cheerful in front of others. She knew Kanade was passionate about the upcoming election, but she felt that Kanade didn't need to worry so much about how people saw her. Kanade then asked if Akane was actually talking about herself. Kanade really wished Akane would stop talking so much, but she needed to tell her off without damaging her own image. Kanade asked Akane to let go of her hand, which she had been holding onto the whole time. Unfortunately, Akane refused. She knew that if she let go, Kanade would definitely run away from her. Kanade said there was no way she would do that and insisted that suddenly running off in front of everyone would be way too embarrassing. Trusting her words, Akane finally let go, only for Kanade to immediately sprint away. Akane chased after her, and both of them eventually got tired and stopped in a narrow alley. Kanade was surprised that Akane didn't just fly to school. Akane explained that if she flew, her underwear might show. According to Kanade, if she didn't want her underwear to be seen, then maybe she should just take it off entirely. At that moment, Akane spotted a cat crossing the street while a truck was speeding toward it. She quickly flew up to rescue the cat, and the truck nearly hit her. Thankfully, Kanade managed to create a tall wall that stopped the truck just in time. Kanade immediately hugged Akane and reminded her not to be so reckless. After all, she only had the body of an ordinary girl. The truck driver came over and scolded them. Kanade apologized, explaining that Akane had flown without thinking and caused the problem. The driver then realized that the two girls standing in front of him were actually members of the Sakurada royal family. Thankfully, Akane and Kanade made it to school on time. It had taken them a while to get there since they had to remove the wall Kanade had created earlier that morning. The wall had been made from material that absorbed shock. Akane was surprised that Kanade made it so big. Akane apologized for making Kanade spend money and asked how much it had cost to make that wall. Akane insisted on paying her back and said she would look for a job. Kanade told her not to worry about it. When Kanade revealed that it had cost 40 million, Akane was completely shocked by how expensive it was. That spring, the girl named Hana met Shu. At that time, Hana was feeling lonely because she had been placed in a different class from all of her former classmates. Not long after, Hitami came over to greet her. Hana felt relieved since she hadn't had anyone to talk to before and didn't recognize any of her new classmates. Hitami told her that one of their old grade school friends, Yuji, was also in that class. Hana immediately approached Yuji and said it had been a while since they last met. Unfortunately, Yuji didn't remember her. He even called her by the wrong name and thought they had been classmates in 6th grade, but in fact they had only shared a class in 4th grade. Hana realized it was probably because she had moved away back then, and it wasn't likely that Yuji would remember her. She had only returned to the city the previous year. Soon after, Shu came over to say hi. Surprisingly, he still remembered her. Hana was so touched that she started crying. Shu even remembered that they had been in the same class back in 4th grade. Seeing Hana cry left Shu confused, and Hitami instantly hit him on the head for making Hana cry.